Although, a big downside to this new company would most likely be the closure of parks in the coming years. Fiscally, it's an obvious choice to consolidate or flat out close parks in smaller markets. So I believe that other closures will be a realistic possibility.
But when it comes to my predictions, I'm 1 for 1 on this aspect. Although I wish it wasn't on the bad stuff. But just to clarify, recently Six Flags has put out on notice that their park Six Flags America in Upper Marlboro, Maryland will be closing for good in November of this year. Despite this park not being on my radar on places that would get the axe, upon further inspection, it's sort of a no-brainer. I'll get into that along with my thoughts on where these coasters will go and speculations for which park is next on the chopping block for this company. My name is Avery, and this is United Coasters. Home to a collection of 9 roller coasters, one would think that this lineup is stacked with noteworthy coasters, like their Premier Rides launch coaster Joker's Jinx, its wooden collection including the GCI Roar, the rare Vekoma Flying Dutchman model Batwing, and the crowd-pleasing Intamin mega coaster Superman Ride of Steel. But a closer look would show that this park has been mostly neglected in major additions, with their most recent coaster acquisition being a relocated one in the spinning Reverchon model Raging Cajun. It's been over a decade since any new ground-up coasters have been here, and the only recent addition to this park was the newly themed area and new trains on Superman. Now that we established its lineup, let's get into why Six Flags is selling Six Flags America. As part of a portfolio optimization program, Richard Zimmerman, Six Flags president and CEO, stated that Six Flags America will close because, quote, marketing the property for redevelopment will generate the highest value and return on investment. He also added that, quote, we anticipate strong interest in the property and will continue to strategically pursue portfolio optimization opportunities as we work to unlock the full value of our portfolio. In other words, the 500 acres of Six Flags America and its Hurricane Harbor will be taken down to sell the land for housing, malls, or anything in between. What most people in the coaster community have been talking about has been Six Flags' gamble on getting a good return on investment with this move. Don't get me wrong though, considering that this park is just 30 minutes from the White House, Six Flags does have a high chance to succeed with a profit from a potential buyer. But the fact that they made this move with seemingly no buyer in mind and kind of just put a for sale sign after demolition is really concerning me. Let's compare this closing to the closure of California's Great America. When the unmerged Cedar Fair announced its closure of the park and land selling all the way back in June of 2022, not only did they project the park to remain open until 2033, they also secured the deal with Prologis, a Bay Area real estate agency, who gave Cedar Fair $310 million for the deal. In this situation, there's greens all across the board, as it gives ample time for guests to travel to the park, better strategies for ride relocations, and overall peace of mind for both parties involved. Oh, and if you're enjoying this video so far, that's great, and you should leave a like and subscribe because we're about to talk about the fun stuff, future ride relocations for Six Flags America. For this, we're gonna have to take a huge grain of salt and factor in 2 major guidelines. For starters, not every coaster is going to be relocated due to its age and wear and tear. Another point is the amount of space these rides take up when placing them in another park. I also should mention that even though we could see Six Flags America sell its coasters to parks outside the chain, it's a high chance that this won't be a thing. Six Flags is notorious for keeping their assets in their own portfolio. So as much as it would be cool to see Wild One get its second life at Knoebels, it's highly unlikely. This is all, of course, with my speculation along with some wishful thinking. Looking at the coasters at Six Flags America, I could see 6 out of the 9 being relocated to other parks, meaning both the Woody's Wild One and Roar are on the chopping block. Seeing that Wild One is among the oldest wooden roller coasters in North America, it's almost a given that November 2nd will be its final closing date. As for Roar, there's a higher possibility that this coaster could be relocated. However, considering that this GCI was strongly in request of the RMC treatment by fans and never received one, I think that Six Flags just wants this coaster gone altogether. The last one to be scratched by me would be the Premier Rides made Joker's Jinx. Considering that this is the sister coaster to Poltergeist at Fiesta Texas and uses LIMs to launch riders like most old school Premier Rides launch coasters, I can see Joker's Jinx as the perfect candidate for being scrapped. Although it would be great to see this coaster still standing, the parts from this ride, especially the motors, can be used to keep others of this type open, including the Mr. Freeze rides and the Flight of Fear models. Now let's look at the coasters remaining and see where they would most likely go. Seeing that Zamperla's family coaster Great Chase is a small coaster and fairly inexpensive to move, I can see this being rehomed to Six Flags over Georgia. Great Chase would be an instant benefit to a park that has a major lack of family rides in their mainly extreme coaster lineup. The same factor for inexpensive relocations applies to the newest coaster that Six Flags America has, Raging Cajun. The spinning Reverchon coaster should be at a park that has less attendance than the big hitters of the main Six Flags parks like Cedar Point, Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Six Flags Great Adventure. That in mind, Raging Cajun would be perfect for Frontier City in Oklahoma. I've already talked about how this park excels in its own charm and is more touted to be the small park family blueprint. And because there isn't that much around, many locals in the area would have Raging Cajun be their first ever spinning coaster. Moving on, we have Professor Screamore's Skywinder, a clone Vekoma SLC. I've only been on one of these, and I've heard that they're notorious for bad transitions and being kinda janky, but nevertheless, they stand as crowd pleasers. With this relocation, I wanted to look at Six Flags parks that currently don't offer a full circuit inverted coaster in their lineup. And even though Six Flags Great Escape doesn't have one, I feel that the ideal park to get this SLC would be Valley Fair in Minnesota. That's because Six Flags Great Escape just got a new coaster in Bobcat last year, meaning that this Minnesota park will have an actual extreme thrill in the park than just Still Venom and Wild Thing. For the next coaster, we have Firebird. This is the very first B&M created roller coaster, and although it's been converted from a stand-up to a sit-down model, the fact that it still runs to this day speaks volumes to this manufacturer. This made my relocation of this coaster to La Ronde an obvious choice. There are many factors as to why I feel that this park is a great fit, but for starters, their lineup hasn't received a roller coaster since 2010, and their last ground-up coaster was even further in 2006 with Goliath. Considering that this park already has that along with Vampire, adding a sit-down B&M just makes perfect sense to me. For Batwing, seeing that it's the only remaining Vekoma Flying Dutchman, this could have a real possibility of being scrapped. You also have to consider that decommissioning it would create less of a headache for future parks than trying to keep up with its maintenance. But where else are you going to find a flying coaster already built just primed for a new home? I believe that Worlds of Fun could have Batwing, placing it in its top 3 best coasters in the park. Along with Mamba and Prowler, Batwing could add a whole new form of thrill and make the park have more of a complete catalog of roller coasters. Lastly, we have Superman Ride of Steel, arguably one of the most expensive to relocate. The fact that this is an iconic B&M mega clone, this pick is more on land availability and type rather than transportation costs. One could argue that it would cost too much to relocate this coaster to Missouri, but the added attendance would be too much of an incentive to pass up, meaning that I believe Superman Ride of Steel would go to Six Flags St. Louis, a park that hasn't had a major coaster since 2013, and that was just a boomerang. So yeah, this would be a godsend, considering that it would bolster their park's lineup and cost less than a new ground-up coaster. Ultimately, moving these 6 roller coasters around would at least give some less looked at parks some investment on a company standard, all while continuing to invest majorly in the cash cow parks. Speaking more on that, let's go back to the other part of the statement when Zimmerman said that they will continue to strategically pursue portfolio optimization opportunities. If that meant the closure of Six Flags America now, it's not a long shot to guess that other parks are in danger of closing too. It's sad to say, but most of the parks I could see getting cut are the parks that could benefit from these relocated coasters. Parks like Valley Fair, Frontier City, Worlds of Fun, Six Flags Great Escape, and even Michigan's Adventure. Along with Darien Lake, these parks are either overshadowed by bigger parks in the vicinity or don't gather enough of an audience to justify its operation. At the end of the day, for any successful company, profit is the driving force, and in order to succeed, you need to trim the fat to get better results. Going back to Six Flags America, it's not in my plans this year to visit the park, and so it's a major possibility that I won't get to ride some or even any of these rides and coasters. More importantly, my heart goes out to all the staff who are in the process of seeking new jobs and the families in the community who are losing out on a place of fun. For the sake of not ending the video on a sad note, I encourage anyone who can make the trip to Six Flags America this year to go and just have fun. Also, I want to know your thoughts on the closing, this video, or coasters in general. And while you're there in the comments, why not leave a like and subscribe? Lastly, I just want to say thank you for watching, and remember to stay united.